La Biennale on Air. Welcome to La Biennale on Air, the official monthly podcast of La Biennale di Venezia. In around 30 minutes, we'll take you behind the scenes of our 130-year-old institution, uncovering both well-known and hidden stories. You'll hear from remarkable guests across all our disciplines: art, architecture, cinema, dance, music, theatre, and the historical archive. To understand the present, we need to revisit the past. So we'll bring you exclusive gems from the collections of our historical archive. But we're also looking ahead, spotlighting fresh perspectives and new voices. And yes, there will be surprises along the way. This June marks an exciting chapter for La Biennale di Venezia. Deep within the Arsenale, the historical archive, International Centre for Research on the Contemporary Arts, has opened the doors of its new home. A place where memory becomes movement, where documents spark ideas, where the past continues to shape the future of contemporary creation. So this month we'll begin there. We'll step inside the new archive with Deborah Rossi and explore the vision behind this ambitious space, before moving through the sounds, performances, and encounters unfolding around its inauguration, including a special musical moment by composer and artistic director Caterina Barbieri. You'll also hear from artists María, Magdalena, Campos-Pons, and Kamaal, Malak. Revisit voices from the most recent Biennale Teatro, look ahead to the 20th International Festival of Contemporary Dance, and turn the pages of Emisferi, Hemispheres, the latest issue of our magazine. This is La Biennale on Air, your monthly stop in Venice.
Think of it as a housewarming party. From the 1st to the 3rd of June, the archive introduced its new venue at the Arsenale, welcoming visitors with a rich 3-day program developed, in true Biennale style, by our artistic directors. Performances across theatre, dance and visual arts, alongside an architecture lecture, a conversation on cinema and a concert, filled the restored Officine e Magazzini del Ferro with life for the first time. More than 8,000 square meters of space, recently renovated with funding from the Italian Ministry of Culture, were brought into use for this special preview, unveiling the site to the public as a dynamic centre of memory and research dedicated to the languages of the contemporary arts. But how did the Historical Archive of Contemporary Arts, ASAC, begin? What role does it play today? And what might this next phase make possible in the years ahead? To guide us through the mission of the Historical Archive, International Centre for Research on the Contemporary Arts, and what this chapter at the Arsenale represents, we spoke with its head, Deborah Rossi.
The need for a new archive on contemporary arts within La Biennale di Venezia emerged immediately after the first edition of the International Art Exhibition held in 1895, with the purpose of collecting and preserving the different materials related to the participating artists and their works. The result was a collection of specific material that concurred to form a sort of Wunderkammer in the style of Avi Warburg. The archive consists of a central part, its Welthard, the historic holdings, including all documents tracing our institution's life, and different collections: the poster collection, the photo library, the media library, the art fund, the collection of documents and press cuttings, and the Biennale library. But let me stress that the archive is not only a place where documents are collected and preserved, but with its unique context, it has become a platform to produce and develop new activities like workshops, colleges, exhibitions, the magazine, and special projects. Currently, the ASAC headquarters are in the main hub of Venice, while the library itself is located in the central pavilion at the Giardini. Next year, the archive will move in a renovated new location within the Arsenale, close to the exhibition venues. Placing Asax holdings and collection in the new Arsenale venue means brings the institution's memory into the heart of its activities, creating a continuous osmosis between past, present, and future, as has been in the case with the library in the Central Pavilion since 2009. This place fully brings together the dual nature of La Biennale Archive. On one hand, a heritage to be preserved, protected, and enhanced. On the other, a space for activities that engage from multiple perspectives with La Biennale's 6 departments and its history, offering new generation of students, researchers, artists, and curators opportunities for reflections, research, and production.
As the archive's collections begin their journey from their current locations in Porto Marghera and the Giardini to their new home in the heart of Venice, ahead of its full public opening in 2027, we stay a little longer at the Arsenale and join the celebrations.
What you've just heard was not simply a concert. That was Yet Darkness Held No Seraphim by Caterina Barbieri, artistic director of the Biennale Musica, performed as part of the events presenting the archive's new premises. Built on repetition and transformation, her music blurs the boundaries between memory and the present. With visuals by Ruben Spini and lighting design by Marcel Weber, the work became an experience of time itself, layered, fluid, and constantly shifting. In that sense, Barbieri's performance felt like the perfect closing gesture for those days at the Arsenale, in a place where the past is not fixed, but alive, and history is continually reinterpreted. As the final notes faded, they left behind a simple idea. What came before is never silent. It continues to speak if we keep listening.
Among the artists participating in the Biennale Arte 2026, María Magdalena Campos-Pons and Kamaal Malak took part in the 3-day festivities with WATERMARKS. Through spoken word, sound, and movement, the performance invited visitors to reflect on travel, memory, and what we carry through time. We met these extraordinary artists and spoke with them about the significance of their participation in this inaugural moment. Here is María Magdalena Campos-Pons.
We were invited to do the performance for the inauguration of the archive after we did our inaugural performance May 6, May 9, and May 7. And it was a short time, and Kamaal and I immediately started working. And the idea was to do a short performance, 20 minutes, in the occasion the inauguration of the Archivio. So the idea of WATERMARKS came to us. And the idea was the archive is a repository of information. It's an organism that contains all kinds of projects that were realized, projects that only were dreamed, that never be completed. It's a really a diary of the life of the Biennale. And we visited the archive. We met with the director. We met with the specialists inside the archive, spent a significant amount of time inside, and come across with taking documents, taking important data that we were looking, who was the first woman curator, the first artist of African ascendancy, the first moment in which a new element was incorporated. And it's short to say we came out thinking the archive is a living organism. The archive is a laboratory of ideas that bring not only what the past, the present, and the future, but a place in which new problems, new ideas, new scenes could be explored. And we are super excited. We are very happy, honored, profoundly honored, and grateful for the city of Venice, for the Venetian, for the people that have been behind, trusting artists, trusting art, and keeping art as the center of the life of a community.
This conversation is also an opportunity to return to the 61st International Art Exhibition in Minor Keys, curated by Koyo Kuo. At the Central Pavilion in the Giardini, Campos-Pons presents Anatomy of the Magnolia Tree for Koyo Kuo and Toni Morrison, a floral monument in which portraits, magnolia forms, and sound come together in a tribute to Black women's solidarity across generations and geographies. We now hear from Kamaal Malak, who created the work's immersive soundscape, bass guitar, synthesizers, and layered loops in minor keys that treat low frequencies as the very architecture of the space.
It's been an honor to be chosen by Koyo Kuo, a dear friend who I known a very short amount of time compared to Magda, but we immediately connected, and I was really shocked by her knowledge of music and her interest in live performance. And when I was asked, or I should say when we were asked to perform at the Biennale, they hadn't done a music piece with an art exhibit. And I was honored because it's something new, and it covered the subject of what we're covering: whispering in 3 movements, resonance, and watermarks. Watermarks flows like water. Whispering in 3 movements tells the story of the history of art and artists and music who were in the Biennale and also in the archives. So it was a challenge because I thought which direction to go. And when Magda said, be free, because Koyo would want you to be free, do all the types of music that you love and that you feel as though matches the essence, the subject matter of the art which Magda created. So in wrapping up today, it's such an amazing energy of everyone here representing the archive. And from my perspective, seeing everyone loving the music and being into it, being gravitated to it, that's what really represents art. That's what represents what Magda and I are pursuing, which is radical love, which is togetherness, which is also being revolutionary, keeping things real, keeps telling the truth through our art and through music. That's the honor that I have. And I hope that everyone feels it and takes it with them, not just for now, but for future biennales and the future of this planet that we live on.
As the new Biennale archive takes shape, June also turns the spotlight on theatre with the 54th International Theatre Festival, Alter Native. As it concluded on the summer solstice, the festival's timing felt fittingly magical for an edition that unfolded as a deeply ritualistic experience. Over 2 weeks, Venice became a meeting point for cultures, languages, and artistic traditions, a space where different ways of seeing and staging the world could coexist, challenge, and transform one another. And naturally, we couldn't leave you out, so we went straight to 4 of its protagonists: Satoshi Miyagi, Dosi Rugamba, Christos Tegioglu, and Alex Strakos Ktistakis, bringing perspectives from Asia, Africa, and Europe. Japanese director Satoshi Miyagi reflects on Mugen no Otello, in which a 14th century form of no theatre reimagines Shakespeare's tragedy as a dreamlike encounter between the living and the dead, and on what emerges when this tradition meets Western theatre today.
An important premise for my creation is that the boundary between the living and the dead is supple, like water. The dead often appear next to the living, and the living often coexist with the dead. And I also want the audience to share my perspective of polytheistic world. I am trying to convey the message that there is not only one truth, and the world cannot be divided into two sides, the gods or devils. I think my premise is very close to the essence of Greek tragedy, a product of a polytheistic world. It is also similar to the portrayal of a modern society that cannot be divided into good and evil in the Three Penny Opera. In addition, I feel that it resonates with the non-modern side of Shakespeare.
Alternative, or more precisely, alternative. There is no specific meaning because etymology can be vague or evocative. The idea is to think of alter as a change and native as one's personal nature, or alter as other and native as the culture of origin. Taking Willem Dafoe's words as a starting point, Satoshi, what does the theme of the Biennale Teatro 2026 bring to mind?
This year's theme, alternative, had a very strong impact on me. I've always tried to avoid being a part of the Japanese theater market, focused on the styles imported from Europe, and spent my life seeking the alternative. On the other hand, there is a risk of falling into cultural nationalism, becoming blinded by the belief that Japanese artists should have pride in the original culture of ancient Japan. In other words, I must be aware of the alter to the native. I felt that the theme of Mr. Defoe accurately expressed the theme that I have been chasing.
We put the same question to Dorsi Rugamba, author and performer of Hewe Rwanda, Letter to the Absent, a deeply personal work bearing witness to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, a testimony that moves between grief and remembrance and ultimately becomes a hymn to life. He responds to what alternative evokes in this context.
I think we can see that in different perspective in theater. I think, we are in a world of alternative because we have to change ourselves to find a different alternative of ourselves for as a human being. For this play, it's also a part I am talking about something really close to me, about my family, my country, but I try to find a way to go beyond that native part of the story, so that I can find the universal part, the most common thing between me and the whole audience I can really meet in different countries is the family. Is most importantly is the love. Love is something we can really share with everybody. And on this very play is, if I have just to summarize it in a one word, it will be love as a solution, as a healing process, and that's what I have in mind.
At the recently reopened Teatro Verde on San Giorgio Island, Christos Stergioglu and Alex Drakos Ktistakis presented Cries, a music theatre piece exploring exile, loss, and displacement through the interplay of ancient tragedy, poetry, and sound. Stergioglu speaks about what it means to set ancient forms free within the performance and about the role of the audience in this process.
When we speak about setting ancient forms free, we don't mean preserving them as museum pieces or reproducing them exactly as they once were. Instead, we try to release them from their historical distance and allow them to resonate in the present. In cries, ancient tragedy, folk poetry, and modern texts are brought into dialogue through music, voice, and movement, thus creating a living experience rather than a reconstruction of the past. As for the audience, we do not expect a decounting of symbols or a search for a single interpretation. We invite spectators to participate through listening, feeling, and allowing themselves to be affected by the sounds, images, and emotions of the performance. The reactivation happens when the ancient cry ceases to belong only to the past and becomes something we recognize physically and emotionally in ourselves and in the world around us.
Finally, from within the world of cries, Alex Drakos Ktistakis picks up on Willem Dafoe's words about alter native.
Well, what I found especially interesting was the second idea, the one that you say that the alter is as the other and the native as the culture of origin, because it actually resonates quite strongly with the way we approach the ancient texts in our own production. Actually, what we try to do is work from a more universal perspective, bringing together materials and influences from different countries and different cultural contexts, while at the same time drawing on elements that are deeply rooted in the Greek tradition, from ancient drama all the way to modern Greek literature, for example. In a way, the music and the text play two different roles within that framework. If we think of the text as representing the native, as the culture of origin, as you said, then the music becomes the other. The text carries those deep cultural roots and that the specific sense of continuity, whereas the music speaks a more international language. So for us, in the way we approach Greek texts, music becomes the axis that introduces a broader, more global perspective, while the text preserves that native quality and connection to its cultural source.
Summer is here. The season of out-of-office replies, disappearing group chats, and the collective agreement that absolutely nothing urgent can happen until September. Fair enough. But before you fully surrender to long lunches, late sunsets, and a completely fictional sleep schedule, there's something happening in Venice that deserves your attention. From the 17th of July to the 1st of August, the city hosts the 20th International Festival of Contemporary Dance. And this year's title is delightfully inconvenient. Time does not exist. Inspired by the theories of physicist Carlo Rovelli, the Biennale Danza 2026 invites us to rethink one of our deepest assumptions, that time moves neatly from past to future. Instead, it suggests a reality shaped by relationships, traces, and connections. Which is where dance comes in. Many of this year's works explore how our individual stories intertwine with collective narratives and how those connections shape the way we understand ourselves and one another. And don't worry, you can still enjoy your sunset over the lagoon. You can still hold the spritz and insist you're on holiday. Just don't be surprised if somewhere between the golden hour and the stage lights, your sense of time quietly slips away. Now, let's hand things over to artistic director Wayne McGregor, who can take us deeper into this year's theme and the ideas behind it.
Perhaps unknowingly, choreographers, dancers, and audiences too have always been secret quantum experts. Our evolving understanding of time, influenced by contacts and concepts from quantum mechanics, is reshaping and reasserting our perspective in various fields, including the arts. Take, for example, the idea of entanglement in quantum mechanics, where particles can be interconnected regardless of distance. Artists have always engaged in partnerships across different mediums, cultures, and timeframes, creating works that reflect a shared consciousness of collective human experience. This interconnectivity, evidenced in much of the work in Biennale Danza 26, encourages a deeper exploration of how individual and collective histories shape artistic expression and our fundamental understanding of reality. Time does not exist, profoundly engages with themes of memory, identity, and existence, encouraging our audiences to reflect on and re-perceive their connection with their own lifeline, their own lifetime, an invitation to changing relationships and states. Over 17 days, more than 150 artists will come together to present over 70 events, including 9 world premieres, 3 European premieres, and 8 Italian premieres, uniting legendary choreographers with dynamic new generation of voices. Their works explore themes of identity, culture, ecology, and the collective human condition, dissolving boundaries between disciplines, timelines, and perspectives.
In 2012, a documentary changed film history and the way cinema can confront historical violence. With The Act of Killing, American director Joshua Oppenheimer exposed one of the bloodiest and until then least acknowledged atrocities of the 20th century: the mass killings committed in Indonesia between 1965 and 1966. He did so through the testimony of Anwar Congo and other perpetrators, inviting them to reenact their crimes in the style of different cinematic genre. With The Look of Silence, which was awarded the Silver Lion Grand Jury Prize at the Venice International Film Festival in 2014, he continued to investigate the Indonesian massacres. And finally, in 2024, with The End, he made his fiction feature debut with a musical in which a family whose members are played by Tilda Swinton, Michael Shannon, and George McKay has survived a global catastrophe and lives in isolation from the world in a bunker. In issue 226 of La Biennale di Venezia magazine, critic Francisco Jaivia interviewed Oppenheimer about his cinematic mission and the publication's central theme, hemispheres. Let's listen to an excerpt of the filmmaker's sharp and thoughtful reflections.
I remember now you remind me, I remember the controversy when The Act of Killing first came out, and I remember arguing this is a story about all of us, and it's about now, and I think, and it's funny, I have the same feeling about The End. You know, The End came out when everyone in America was still hoping that Kamala Harris would win, and everyone had their head in the sand about what was actually happening. And I wrote The End in the aftermath of towards the end of the first Trump administration. And it was very much, for me, a film about all of us now. It seems to be about the future, but it isn't for me about the future. It's about that was the other thing I connected to with this theme of hemispheres. It's about the bunkers that we are all placing ourselves in, and the limits, the way we are willfully limiting our compassion. The victims of that are not primarily or not solely the people whom we exclude from our compassion, but actually ourselves. Because, as I said earlier, when you questioned why I didn't use the word self for Anwar, we are coextensive with everyone. The people we exclude are us. Not because we're like them. We are them. I'm sure if you took a single soul, if you were to say, what would the world be like if any individual person or even any individual earthworm in somewhere in the Horn of Africa did not come into existence, I'm sure none of us would be here. The whole universe would be different. Planet Earth wouldn't be here. We're all interconnected. And if we don't see that, we diminish our capacity for love. And when we divide ourselves into hemispheres, and here I am, you rightly said, sitting in Greenland, which America thinks is within its hemisphere. And when we divide ourselves into territory and say, this is mine and that's not mine, and you can do what you want over there, and this is what I care about and that's not what I care about, we fundamentally diminish what we can be by creating this by identifying ourselves with our ego. There's this, and just with our selfish, self-protective self.
And that's a wrap on this episode of La Biennale on Air. In the last half hour or so, we've stepped inside a new archive, drifted through music that found light in the dark, followed watermarks and stories of memories and migration, caught up with some of the voices reshaping contemporary theatre, questioned the very existence of time with the Biennale Danza, and travelled inside the pages of Hemispheres through the lens of cinema. Not bad for a single podcast episode. Before we go, we'd like to pay tribute to an artist whose work transformed the way many of us understand storytelling. This month, we say goodbye to Marjane Satrapi, writer, filmmaker, illustrator, and creator of Persepolis. Through humour, honesty, and imagination, she showed how individual lives can illuminate global histories. At La Biennale, we remember her through the films and worlds she shared with audiences over the years, including Chicken with Plums, presented in competition at the Venice International Film Festival in 2011. Her work reminds us that art travels across borders, outlives its creators, and continues speaking long after the final page is turned. Meanwhile, Venice is settling into summer mode. Longer evenings, busier quays, and more things happening than anyone can reasonably keep track of. The good news? We're only getting started. More performances, more encounters, more conversations, and more moments that make you stop mid-scroll and send someone a message saying, you should see this. So, whether you've been listening from a studio, a train, a beach, a vaporetto, an airport lounge, or were looking extremely engaged during an online meeting that could probably have been an email, thank you for joining us. We'll be back soon with more stories from artists, thinkers, performers, filmmakers, architects, musicians, and professional troublemakers of the very best kind. Until then, stay curious, stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, support artists, and remember, time may not exist, but La Biennale's summer calendar is very, very real and packed. This is La Biennale on Air. Catch you later. A big ciao from Venice. La Biennale on Air is a podcast produced by La Biennale di Venezia. The voices you're hearing are those of Francesca Fatichenti
and Marco Quaglia.
Mixing and audio editing are by C3, Tecnologie e Organizzazione SRL. The podcast is curated by the editorial activities and web office and the press office of La Biennale di Venezia. Cesare Visantis, Valentina Campana, Claudia Gioia, Ornella Mogno, and Marta Zannoner.